One of the most asked questions that I get is definitely, how do I raise the level of my paintings? Now, many of us go through periods where we feel like we're stuck and we're unable to move our painting to get better results. And that, honestly, even if you're a beginner painter, if you're an amateur or you're a professional, it happens to everybody. So what I thought that I'd do is walk you through the process that I use to actually ensure that my paintings continually progress, because there is nothing more frustrating than actually feeling like we're going around in circles and there is no progress in our paintings. So welcome to Janine Gallizia Live. This is where we're going to start talking about all different things around painting, whether it be how to prepare your paintings to go in a competition, how to know which paintings you should put in this competition or this one, how to exhibit your paintings better, how to raise the level of your paintings, framing, going and talking to people when it comes to art materials, exhibitions, galleries, anything that has to do with watercolour that we don't talk about enough, because we often just talk about the painting process, yet the painting progress is not everything that there is to know when you're wanting to move into a more professional level of painting. So this question, how do I raise the level of my paintings? Honestly, I think everybody goes through this, and it's really important because you don't want to get to these plateau periods, meaning that you progress a little bit and then all of a sudden you start repeating the same sort of thing and you plateau. And then getting from this place to a higher level starts to feel hard. It actually starts to seem complicated. And to be perfectly honest, people stay sometimes in this period for years on end. It can even be 10, 20 years without progress. And if you're anything like me, when I don't progress with my art, I get extremely frustrated. So I don't accept this. And I refuse to have a plateau last long. I don't want it to last longer than, let's say, 3, 4, 5 months maximum. So I will push myself to progress. I will push myself to change. And I think this is one of the most important parts. So what happens? It's a question of repetition. It's a question of habits. So you're progressing with your painting, okay? Let's say now you reach your first plateau. And then what happens during this first plateau is that things start to become easier. You kind of feel like, this subject painted in this way, using these colors, this technique, let's just even say this recipe, meaning this chronological process, this method, starts to become easy. A little bit like, I could paint this subject with my eyes closed. That's what you don't want to get to, okay? This is where some people find this as a comfortable period, as a period where, I've progressed. Now what I'm doing, people are loving these results, or I'm loving these results, and I can paint this subject in this manner with my eyes closed. That means you've stayed too long on the plateau. Why? Because painting is just habitual. Painting is a process. So as you're doing something new, you're struggling, you're thinking, you're going out of the box, you're going into you're no longer in your comfort zone and you're going into risk zone. So it's kind of stressful. It's not necessarily the most pleasurable way of painting, but that's how you progress. Because when you are in that comfortable stage, what you're doing is you're quite simply just repeating what you've already done. So it's comfortable because I've already done it before. So there's no adrenaline, scary moments where you're thinking, I'm just going to mess up my painting. It's just easy. It flows. It's repetition. It's habitual. And that's what happens in this plateau. You get to this level, and then all of a sudden you start repeating these things. And it's easy. I can paint it with my eyes closed. And then what happens? Because it's comfortable, and usually this is when you start getting feedback from other people. Maybe you're even getting selected into competitions and exhibitions. So you're feeling good about your painting. But the problem is that an artist will always get bored, because we strive to progress. We strive for the challenge, and we also strive to get that adrenaline. That's actually part of the process. So if you're staying too long on the plateau, you're forming habits, and it's the same paper, the same color, the same subject, the same method, the same everything. And as these habits, we repeat them over and over again, they start to become very much part of our painting process, to the point that sometimes they're hard to change. So the longer you stay in this habitual level, the harder it is to go up. So what I always think, and this is what I always do, I go up, I start to repeat what I'm doing, and then when I feel like I'm sort of comfortable and I understand that this process is now, I'd sort of say, I know where I'm going with this one. And then I'll do 3 or 4 paintings. Yeah, I'm now sure that I've understood this process. Then what I do is I step back. And I'll step back and I'll look at my paintings, maybe the last 4 that I've done. And I'll step back and I'll look at my paintings and I'll be like, okay. So a painting comes down to color, tonal values, and shape. So then I'll step back and I'll start looking at my paintings and I'll like, what is my weakness at the moment? What is the thing that perhaps is going to stop me from getting that higher level? So I need to do this every time because my weakness will change every time. And so let's say I'm looking at it and I'm like, you know what? Shapes I find fine. I'm looking at my paintings. I feel like the shapes in my paintings are okay. Okay. Tonal values. If you can't identify tonal values and how they're working within your paintings, take photos, transfer the photo into black and white and look at the black and white photo. All right, so I'm looking at the black and white photos, or I'm looking at my paintings because I can identify my tonal values, and I'm like, all my dark values are opaque. All my dark values are heavy. Let's just say it's that one. Okay, I've identified this is a weakness that I have at the moment, so I'm not going to produce more paintings. Why? Because producing more paintings on this level is going to do what? Remember? It's just going to create more habits, and these habits are going to get tighter and tighter and are going to actually make it harder for me to progress. So once I feel like I'm doing good, I'll stop painting, I'll step back, I'll look at several paintings, and I'll try to pinpoint that one aspect that I can see in at least the majority of the paintings that I feel is the weakest at the moment. I may find 5 different things that I don't like, but don't try and work on 5 different things at once. Try to find the one that you think is really the worst, the biggest problem, that if you can change that biggest problem, it can give you the biggest jump. Okay, so one problem, always the biggest problem, and then we're going to work on it, that weakness, and hopefully that's where you're going to get that next jump from. Okay, doesn't that make sense? And then what you do now that you've made that next jump, because what I'm doing is I'm doing tonal value exercises, target exercises, to ensure that my dark tonal values are no longer opaque, no longer heavy. I'm doing these exercises until, yep, I've got it. I now understand I wasn't taking enough water. I was going back over my washes. I was using, let's say, heavy granulating or opaque color instead of more transparent colors to make my dark values. So I can now see where my problem's coming from. I've been able to correct it, and now I'm in the exercises getting more fluid, transparent, dark washes. Okay, I've got it. I'm now going to start painting again. And then as I'm struggling to get this into my paintings, because now I have to think about shape, composition, color. So it's not the first painting usually that's going to work. And I'm not going to beat myself up about it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to say, okay, got it. I'm now trying to integrate this new learning about how I'm painting my darker tonal values into my painting. So all these other aspects tied together. Okay, not perfect the first time. Try again, do another subject. Maybe you want to repeat the same subject. Depends on how you work. Until I start feeling, you know what? Yeah, okay, I'm getting it. Okay, so now I've got my darker washes more fluid, more transparent, and they're beginning to work with the rest of the painting. So I start painting 3, 4 paintings. Yeah, I got it. It's working. And no, I do not continue to keep painting in this process. I'm going to then step back at some point when I feel like this one's done, got this one. And then I'm going to start doing 3 or 4 paintings. These 3 or 4 paintings, I'm going to put them to the side again. I'm going to stop painting again. And then I'm going to look and I'm going to say, all right, now what is my biggest weakness at this point? And now I'm going to go through my paintings again, always thinking it's either a shape problem, a tonal value problem, or it's a color problem. Understanding shape expands, all these things expand together to include structure, to include composition. But when you bring structure, tonal value, design, all these things down, it really is only shape, tonal values, and color. So always look in your shapes, in your tonal values, in your color, because that's the only place you're going to find the problem. And then I will try to identify once more the biggest problem. And when I find that one biggest problem, I'm then going to go in and I'm going to find a target exercise for that one problem. And I'm going to work on that one until I've improved this one. Then I start painting paintings and I start incorporating it into my paintings. And maybe even that period takes longer than 3 or 4 paintings. Maybe it takes you a month. Maybe it takes you 3 months. But is 3 months really a long time? Because if you're improving your paintings every 3 months, that's actually extremely fast. So don't get upset. Don't get frustrated when you start trying to do something new and you start trying to work on something, and then when you're bringing it back, so you start working at improving a weakness and you start trying to bring that back in your painting, and at first it doesn't fit with all the rest of the painting because it's hard. It's hard to bring something new and get that new thing, that better way of working tonal values with your color work, with your shape work, with your overall composition, with creating an interesting design. It's not necessarily going to be the first painting, maybe not even the 5th painting, where you really feel that it's getting a higher level of a result. So don't get frustrated don't get frustrated with it. Just focus on the fact that it's a process. And as long as you realize that it's a process, then you're going to understand that it may take a few paintings to get there. So what I suggest is you start off by taking at least 5 paintings, 5 recent paintings. No point taking older paintings. So take the 5 most recent paintings that you have, even if they were complete disasters, okay? Good paintings, bad paintings, perfect. Take the last 5 or 6 or 10 paintings that you've done and try to put them somewhere in your house so that the paintings are in a line and they're vertical. Then step back, all right, and just look at painting number 1. Take a piece of paper, painting number 1. I'm looking at this painting. Okay, so I know that I'm looking for, is there a problem in my shapes? Is there a problem in my tonal values? Is there a problem in my color? Okay, so I'm now looking at this painting to say, all right, is the problem a shape, tonal value, or color? Tonal values. The dark values were too heavy. Okay, now painting number 2. Well, I'm going to have a look, exactly the same question. Shape, tonal value, and color. What is the problem? My colors are too bright, too attractive, too sort of everywhere. Feels like it's fireworks going on in the painting. Doesn't feel like it's natural. All right? Okay. Too many different colors. All right. 3rd painting. Too many different colors in this one as well. Okay. 4th painting, write them down. And then when you get to the end of the paintings, find the problem that has come up the most, the one that you've seen the most. So objectively look at every single painting. Don't just start with the first one and say, okay, so the first one, the dark tonal values were too heavy, therefore I'm only looking at my dark tonal values. Is it heavy all the time? No. Look at every different painting objectively and objectively try to find its weakness. And by writing them down every time, painting number 1, painting number 2, what you're going to do is then just go back and it's going to be very easy. Oh, out of 6 paintings, it was 4 times too many varied colors. It looks like fireworks in my paintings. All right, cool. Now that's the weakness I'm going to work on, and therefore I'm going to use a target exercise to actually repair this one, to work on it, to improve on it by working the exercise over and over again, just like a sports person would. By working at improving that thing, that is then going to improve. And because that was the main weakness in the painting, that's a big jump that you're going to get once you start getting that incorporated into your paintings. This is actually the way that I've always progressed. This is the way that I've always focused my attention. So when I teach, I also try to bring the target exercises back to allow people to progress with that problem to increase their paintings. So I have a whole library of target exercises, I think, for every single problem that we can have, understanding that painting is not the only problem that we have. What I mean by that, the actual painting process, the way that we actually apply the color to the paper is not the only problem that we have. We have observational weaknesses. We have decision-making weaknesses. We have the ability to see what's wrong and what needs to be corrected sort of problems. Painting goes further than just painting, which is why I want to put this video series together, because we don't talk so much about this. And although every Monday I give live sessions and we focus on all these different aspects, we are unable still to go into all of the outside the painting problems. So here on Janine Gallizia Live, I'm going to drop a video every week, because if collectively we are raising the level of our painting, and we're many, then the level of watercolor will improve, and then also the level of our watercolor exhibitions will knock everybody's perception of watercolor out of the park. To thank you for watching this very first episode, what I've decided to do is I have put down in the comments a link to a video that I produced about a year ago, which is on target exercises, which will actually give you target exercises for tonal values, for shape, for color, for different problematics, so that when you do identify what's going on in your painting, you can go to this video, you can watch it over and over again, you can pull out the target exercise that suits the problem that you have, and you can work on it to raise your level. If you're wanting personal feedback with your paintings and you're finding that although this process does make sense, it is easy, you're still having trouble identifying what your weaknesses are, jump onto my Monday lives. My Monday lives are really good. If you paint along with me, because we work through everything, we work through all different problematics. If you paint along with me, regardless of your level, there's no level for these courses, you can then get a critique of your painting, talk to me, ask me your questions, and I'll give you my honest opinion. I will give you feedback and I will give you suggestions that can help you then go back and work these tonal values, work these color issues, work these shape issues, whatever it is, to improve your painting. All right. So you've got the target exercises in the link. If you're wanting the feedback, jump on a Monday live. You don't have to inscribe for multiple sessions. You can inscribe week by week when you feel you need it. All right. So happy painting, and I'm looking forward to doing the next video next week. Think of subscribing, then you get the notification, and I'll say happy painting. See you next week.